Hey all, it's your girl Aaron, and today I wanted to talk a little bit about the hammer and sickle, and just to share my opinion on the matter. So, the hammer and sickle would be the hammer and the sickle going around it, and it's something that's often been associated with the words and ideas socialism, as well as certain states and organizations like the USSR, etc. And so today there are still people who feel like there's value in using the symbol. They argue that it is a symbol for worker power, that it represents workers. They say that it wasn't, fair of the USSR to uh, do what they did under that symbol, and it wasn't just the USSR. There were other organizations and movements and states that have used the symbol and done negative things with it, have uh, hurt people who are innocent, have acted in ways that were oppressive to indigenous people or indigenous movements, etc. And they say that we should try and reclaim it, that or that uh, the benefit of a recognizable symbol outweighs the negative associations, etc. So I disagree with that, and I think that the negative associations with the symbol, um, that they have always been the mainstream association with the symbol. That there hasn't been a point in time where people were like, "Oh, the hammer and sickle is totally not like USSR vibes." It's always been USSR vibes, and there's so I would say we need to stop trying to repair the image of the USSR. We need to stop trying to make excuses for state capitalism and although anytime people uh, take things into their own hands and try to determine a new set of government for them, it's good that they are doing that, but what they implement is extremely important. If people have a big coup revolution vibe and then implement fascist policies and stuff, that's not okay. And just because workers did it doesn't make it a good thing. Now, we can discuss whether the USSR was fascist or not another day, but they were definitely not fascist in the sense of the traditional far right uh, um, strain of fascism, at least. And yeah, so I would argue that what we that symbols are cool for reasons of solidarity, something that can inspire people and can encourage people to stand together. We do have symbols like that. We have symbols like the raised fist. We have the circle A, and we can also come up with new symbols. Um, and you can even have symbols that use the same sort of formats with the hammer and sickle, where it's like crossed and all that, but with different implements. And you'll be judged basically because if you use the same ones as like Jushism, then obviously that's what people will think you are. But uh, I would say change the colors up, change the implements up. That's the most important thing, to break that association with the USSR. And I think that it's really important we do that and that we stop trying to repair their image, because although it was good that they rose up and tried to do things, it was a mistake, the system that they put into practice. And state capitalism is a mistake. Giving the states a whole bunch of power and it becomes authoritarian and dictatorial is a mistake. Uh, Getting rid of like all the rich people, but not getting rid of the system of capitalism, with where you have markets and wages and you have to buy stuff instead of it going to production for use, to keep it in production for exchange, was a mistake. And to have gulags, to lock up anarchists, to declare homosexuality illegal, and to when workers rose up and striked to lock them all up and stuff, like all of that stuff was a mistake. And when you are using the symbols that those people were using, in a sense, you're saying, well, I can overlook those mistakes, or I don't think those things are mistakes. And that's something that can be very dangerous to your movement, because you are trying to encourage people to try something new, and they're going to be looking at something that isn't new, that has many failings, and that has valid criticism of it, and being like, well, if this new thing you want to implement is anything like that, then I'm not on board. And the reality is, and the truth is, that it doesn't have anything in common with that. And too often it's people who are invested in things like left unity, who are actually sympathetic to state capitalism, that are most passionate in defending the hammer and sickle. But we gotta just throw state capitalism under the bus and admit that it was a mistake. Admit that the intentions may have been good, but what was put into practice was a complete failure. And that isn't to say that neoliberalism or fascism would have been better for the people, like those would have been even worse, but that doesn't make state capitalism the solution either. We all sort of agree that socialism is the answer, and when they started saying to people that they were socialists but implementing state capitalism, they made actual socialism so much harder to implement, because now, instead of thinking of things in terms of, well, what could be an alternative to capitalism, their economic Overton window has been reduced to just capitalism, because you're calling a strain of capitalism socialism. And so when you use the symbols, you're just adding to that misinformation. You're just saying like that a way to freedom is to repeat those past mistakes again, whether it be economic or state. So yeah, I think it's important that we move on, and we look maybe for new or use other working class symbols, and we stop trying to use the hammer and sickle. It doesn't mean that it's, inherently a bad symbol, but the associations made with it, you are taking on that whole burden. It's like if you are against like children in concentration camps, you don't go around saying like, oh, we should keep ICE around, but we should just stop them from doing all these bad things. It's like, why would you want to associate yourself with the people who were doing the negative things? Like, no, abolish us, abolish state capitalism, abolish Marxist Leninism in a sense, because we have actual socialism, and we could be working towards that if we weren't wasting our time with trying to perpetuate capitalism in yet another new configuration that has never done a better job than any other configuration. I mean, well, it's never been the best configuration, let's put it that way. So, and it's an incremental change. And having a revolution or violently throwing out, it's like a set of people, but keeping the same system, that isn't radical. That isn't, that's it's like a revolution to go backwards, or a revolution to stay in the same place. It's like, no, where is workers gaining power? Where is workers being uplifted? Where is decentralization of power happening? Where's the economy moving away from markets, away from exchange, away from, I'll give you this if you give me that, to, hey, you need something, I can give it to you, here you go, no cost, no reward, don't need anything back. We are just cooperating society. That is the socialism we need, and that isn't the socialism that the hammer and sickle makes people think of. The hammer and sickle makes people think of what if we did capitalism, but made the state more powerful, and then tried to get the state to be the good guy for once. Like, I don't understand why people think, and I was one of the ones that fell for it, but it's fancy rhetoric and memes and stuff that make you fall for it. But when you think about it, it doesn't make sense why that could ever work. Maybe if you were able to convince yourself that it was impossible to have anything else other than fascism or neoliberalism or state capitalism, maybe then state capitalism would be a good idea. And maybe that's why people want to make social democracy out to be as bad as fascism, because they don't want you to think of it as better than state capitalism, which in many ways it is. Although it might not be as easy, like you don't just go in with your stormtroopers and force your policies. When you do get those policies through popular support, it's it's done in a voluntary way. It's done in a way where people are making up their minds about the society they want, rather than it being dictated to them. So yeah, let's come up with new symbols. And I guess that's all I want to say. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.